much indeed, Yamauchi-san. Here is the grid then, lined up, ready to go for the first race of the evening in the Gran Turismo World Series in the Nations Cup. Miyazono will start this one on pole position with Gallo alongside on the front row. This is a sprint race and, of course, will not only decide the grid for the next race, but it will give them points in this one as well. 12 points to be scored in total in this race, right down to 1 point for 10th position. And you can see there the live points rankings as they sit for now. Kylian Drumont is the points leader, Jose Serrano in second, Takuma Miyazono in third. Three drivers separated by just 1 point for second as well. Jimmy, looking forward to this.
Yeah, Drumont didn't have the best qualifying session earlier on, of course, which is why he's down there in 8th position. But anything can happen. We've got a good few races coming up, and with double points on offer as well, all can change.
Certainly can. So Takuma Miyazono will lead the field across the timeline then as we get ready to get this one underway. There are the competitors in the bottom left of your screen. Nations Cup action at the Gran Turismo World Finals for this race is about to begin. What will happen as the 12 drivers come across the line and we go racing here in Amsterdam. Miyazono leads the field down towards the first corner, followed by Gallo, Lopez, Serrano and De Bruyn inside the top 5. Over the crest of the hill we go. A fast and frightening first couple of corners as they're pretty blind. We don't really hit the anchors until a couple of corners later. And given the fact that the field is quite spread out due to the rolling start, don't expect any moves in the first couple of corners, but especially as we get onto that long back straight and head in towards the hairpin at the end of it, that's when I'm sure we'll see the drivers making their first overtakes for position.
Ricardo leading NSX, leading F40. Miyazono, Gallo and Lopez breaking away from the front of the pack. Also going with them is Jose Serrano. But we're about to get to our first big straight here and our first big slipstreaming opportunity. Who's got the power? Let's find out. Miyazono leads. We go into the dark, into the tunnel for the first time here. Awesome to see all these cars out on track together. Gallo there, deep in the slipstream, big speed in the background. Will he go for a move though, down towards the left hand? He does. Gallo goes up into the lead. Easy move there for him, using that straight line speed of the NSX, and up into the lead goes Valerio Gallo. Miyazono does try and come back at him, not quite there. Koki Lopez actually getting past Serrano in the background too, but then also having to vie for position with the AMG driver, so this is getting already pretty feisty.
Yeah, pretty feisty at the back as well. And Strozer and Barbara have come together, and there's an investigation going on for that incident, but pretty calm up in front, but for those couple of overtakes. Down through into the final sector we go. You can already see a bit of daylight beginning to build between Gallo and Miyazono. Lopez and Serrano are going to have to be a bit careful if they don't get involved in squabbling for position for third place, because if they do, they will be set to lose a fair bit of time, and it might be difficult for them to make up that deficit as the race progresses on. Meanwhile, the end of the first lap, Gallo it is that leads. Lopez picks up a penalty then for track limits, presumably there. Half a second penalty for him. That will drop him behind Serrano when he serves it. And crucially, will it drop him behind the likes of De Bruyn, maybe into the clutches of Carrazza for 5th or indeed 6th place. Lopez also a little bit wide at that first corner. That leaves him under pressure here from Serrano. And the Spaniard in 4th place rather, can't take this lying down. He's got to make every opportunity count while he can. Up the inside as we go through into the left-hander, into the tunnel. Serrano up and through into 3rd place. Runs it a little bit deep, but Lopez won't have any chance of retaliation into the next right-hander.
Yeah, you can see these guys squabbling. Has sort of brought Kai De Bruyn back into the fray. In 5th place currently is the Dutch driver in the R32 GTR. Drumont has made his way up to 6th position there just behind him. It's a good recovery so far, but what an awesome lineup of cars is this. I always say this when we use these cars. It's so nice to see all these guys, all these cars on circuit together. This is what Gran Turismo for me is all about right now. Valerio Gallo leading the way in that NSX down on the straights. That looks like a rocket down the straights, Tom, that thing.
Yeah, it's pretty handy in the straight line, isn't it, that Honda NSX? So that's good news for him. Meanwhile, behind you see Serrano and Lopez. Oh, Serrano very sideways. There must have been contact going into that left-hander, because Serrano was fishtailing all over the shop going through there. Lopez still sitting in 4th place, and he's got that half-second penalty to serve, as we know, this time around. Drumont, meanwhile, has managed to escalate himself up a few places into 5th from 8th on the grid, and Sasaki likewise up from 10th into 7th position as well. There's a right gaggle of cars here. Oh, Jimmy, there's an R32 Nissan GTR. You might recognise that.
The best car in the field, I think, mate, honestly. So Kai De Bruyn, of course, a man with taste as he chases Kylian Drumont, and also another very cool car, the Mark IV Supra. So Supra versus Skyline. We're on board now with the Frenchman, Kylian Drumont, and there now is Kai De Bruyn sitting just behind him. You can see the power of this thing down the straight there. 250, 260, 270 like it's nothing. 300 kph plus, 200 mile an hour as we go into T1 there. Hard on the brakes. Now these cars, they are equipped with the racing hard compounded tyres, but they're definitely not racing cars. They don't have the same sort of agility as our Group 3 or Group 4 machines. So it's all power and really just try and figure it out when you get to the corner.
Yeah, you can see Drummond there having a good run here on Coque Lopez coming through this first sector. I thought he might have a dive to the inside there, but Lopez defending that line quite nicely. Drummond tried to switch back and go for the sweeping line to gather more momentum as he came through the next series of corners. We'll find out if he's able to do so when we come through into this next left-hander and onto the straight. The exit through here is going to be absolutely critical. Slightly tighter line and a later apex there for Drummond as he tries to carry the speed through that corner, but the legs on that Ferrari looking pretty handy in a straight line as we go through the tunnel, burst briefly into the daylight, then into the darkness. Your eyes playing havoc with you as you adjust and you come back into the daylight, and we head into the braking zone of the next corner. Meanwhile, up in front, Serrano and Lopez are pretty close for company there as well. Sorry, Miyazono, I should say, and Serrano for second place. Serrano's managed to drop Lopez courtesy of the penalty for the Spaniard, and now Jose Serrano, 1/3 of the Nations Cup winners last year, right on the back of the 2020 champion.
Valerio Gallo sort of bolting away, though. Nearly a second between him and this man, Takuma Miyazono, and Jose Serrano just behind. I mean, these three drivers, the talent they share between them is insane. So fast in Gran Turismo 7 as we go on board with Jose Serrano just trying to navigate his way through this tight and twisty part of the circuit, the last chicane. This is where these cars struggle the most, and then here's a bit they like the best. The big straight here, again in the tow. So great to see Honda versus Lamborghini versus AMG all on circuit at once. Cool, huh?
Oh, it's mega, isn't it? And also, you know, different drivetrains as well. You've got front engine, rear wheel drive, mid engine, rear wheel drive as well. So the different characteristics of that car will come into play at different points over the course of the lap. Meanwhile, Miyazono has got Serrano all over him like a bad rash. He's now got him underneath him as he goes through into the tunnel and into the left-hander. Serrano into second place, and now his next target will be race leader Valerio Gallo, who's some 1.5 seconds up the road.
You didn't put up too much of a fight there, did Miyazono? I think he just understood that, yeah, I've maybe fluffed this corner a bit. I'm just going to just open the steering, let Serrano through and chase for now. Let's see if we can catch Valerio Gallo. Behind these guys, by the way, is that man, Coque Lopez. He's just about fending off Kylian Drummond and Kai de Bruin in the Supra and Skyline combination as we go into the tunnel once more. There is Coque Lopez in the Ferrari F40. Of course, all these cars you've just joined us tuned to over 1,000 horsepower, which means speeds of 350 k's plus before this big braking zone. Down at the bottom, use the camber on the inside to get the car around. Here's a replay. We're on board with Sasaki lower down the field. We go into the chicane. There's Coque Lopez going wide. And there's a car on our inside as well. I think that was Kai de Bruin as we come back across. Is there contact? No, they're just about all avoided, but Sasaki loses the place. There goes Kai de Bruin. Does he get past Kylian Drummond? He does. Up goes Kai de Bruin.
Yeah, lovely bit of driving there for the Dutchman then. Just lost out to De Bruin on that last lap, though. Must have made another mistake, unfortunately, there for the Dutchman. But good overtaking nonetheless. So that just goes to show how the seas can part when you're racing in such close quarters. So just a reminder, this race, 12 points on offer for the victor. Kylian Drummond was the man who was leading the points. If the checkered flag fell now, according to our point standings, he would drop down to 4th. Gallo would inherit the lead of the championship by 2 points going into race 2. But there's still plenty of time left to run and plenty of time for the complexion of this one to change as we head on to the start of the halfway point of this race.
On board with Karatsa. Not seen too much of him in this race. He's in the R34 GTR, the Spec 2 Neo, which goes for 40 billion trillion pounds nowadays. don't ever look for how much that car costs nowadays.
Oh, Sasaki, look at that. That's a lunge on the inside of De Bruin going through into the left-hander. I didn't think he was going to make that stick. De Bruin ran a little bit wide. He manages to live to fight another day, but that's a warning sign there, isn't it, for the Dutchman?
But the traction there of the four-wheel drive from the R32 just pulled him out of that a little bit. But, yeah, as you say, Sasaki looking all over the back of Kai de Bruin as we come now into this left hand. Just seems to have a bit more cornering speed, a bit more able to rotate that car with that mid-engine layout, the rear engine layout the Porsche is famous for. But you see down the straights, Kai's gone.
Yeah, the four-wheel drive really helping out Kai de Bruin in terms of the corner traction, and that really pays dividends, especially when you are on a long straight such as this. Sasaki just has no answer to it, so clearly the Japanese driver knows that his strength is in the twisty bits, in the corners, and that's where de Bruin in the R32 Skyline is beginning to struggle. Drummond, meanwhile, up the road, now on the back of Coque Lopez, looking to try and find his way past. No, you're not having a fever dream. You have got a Ferrari F40 and a Toyota Supra battling for position here in this race. race, down through into the left-hander, and surely it's only a matter of time before Drummond starts to attack here.
Yeah, this Supra is pretty much everyone's perspective of what every Supra is. Like 1,000 horsepower and chasing a Ferrari to go heavy in the brakes, or runs into the back of Coque Lopez there. A little bit of contact. Killing Drummond, I think he just sort of let off there and let Lopez keep the position, because you can't bump and run there. You will get a penalty from our live stewards behind the scenes. But look at the legs on that Ferrari out of the corner, so fast in that first part of the acceleration zone. It's only towards the end of the straight does the Supra come back towards it again. So we're really seeing some strengths and weaknesses of these different cars. Of course, the cars all picked by the drivers after their sector qualifying earlier on. So these are all cars that they've chosen to be in.
You see Kylian Drummond there trying to find his way through on the inside. There's a half a gap appearing here. He'll be a brave man if he can stick it through. And he does. Kylian Drummond makes a late lunge there on Coque Lopez. The door was only slightly ajar, but Drummond elbowed his way past, and that'll be the fourth place.
Didn't even invite him, did he? He's like, all right, okay, there it is, off I go. So Drummond now in that Supra, has he been released now? That's the question. Was he being held up by Coque Lopez? But the gap now to this front three drivers is now 4 seconds. Serrano now battling with Valerio Gallo for the race lead. Looks to the outside around this left hand. It's going to be a long way around for Jose Serrano. Does he make it work or not? No, he's on the high side. Gallo comes back on the low side. Great clean racing between these two drivers, and Gallo just chops him off there. Says, no, you know what? No more. I'm taking the line. And I have to say right now, Serrano looks a little bit more racy than Gallo does. Looks like he has the pace at the moment.
Yeah, just looking at the pace last time around, Serrano 45.7, Gallo 46.2. I know, of course, Serrano would have had the advantage of the slipstreamer down that long back straight, but still that's a good pace difference between the two. Serrano fastest overall in the first sector this time around, despite being behind Gallo. Gallo runs a bit deep into the penultimate turn. That's a warning sign there. He'll live to fight another day, can park in on the apex, but now he needs a good run out of this final corner, which he does manage to get, and just thwarts the challenge of the Spaniard for the time being. But we come across the line then to start lap 7 at Trial Mountain. Just a reminder, of course, 12 points on offer here in this race, and it could be set to change the championship order.
What, Serrano there going for the drift entry? I'm not sure he meant to do that. I think he panicked a little bit there. It's so funny seeing Gallo come through there all just sorted out and gripped up, and Serrano just all sideways, but kept the car in one place, but definitely lost a bit of time doing that, but putting on a good show for our Dutch audience here. Through the first sector again. 7 laps down, 10 of 10 and 3 remaining.
See how ginger they're having to be on the power going through there as well, just trying to get the power down, aren't they? They've got a lot of performance, these cars, 1,000 horsepower, but the stopping power, by comparison, it's like the brakes are made out of old biscuit barrels at this point, because they just don't want to slow down when they get to a corner.
I mean, to be fair to most cars, stopping from 350 kph isn't the easiest thing in the world, as we're about to see that now. 360 kph I saw there from Jose Serrano, and he almost, as Tom says, misses his braking, almost touches the back of Valerio Gallo there, and you can see there he's just hardly able to control this V8 under the hood of this AMG here. Now in the background, Miazona is starting to slowly come back into the picture, but Serrano's definitely the fastest of these first three, but he just can't find a way by Gallo at the moment.
See the live points rankings then. Gallo, if the checkered flag fell now, would be the winner going into the second race of the evening. 3 races to come here tonight in the Nations Cup to be crowning our world champion of 2024, and it is still very much all to play for, especially with double the points on offer for the final race of the season. Out of the final corner we go, across the timing line then to start lap 8 out of 10 here at Trial Mountain. On board we ride here with Jose Serrano. There's some good battles going on further down as well. Sasaki and Lopez pretty close on track for 5th place. Karatza not far behind Kai de Brun for 7th position as well. Coming over the crest of the hill through into that left-hander.
Serrano a bit more composed this time through there. I think he did from his last lap, didn't he? Look how much closer he is because of it. Now, if he's this close going into the tunnel, it's almost a guaranteed overtake. But Gallo has been very, very strong through this first sector all race. So let's watch on board. Jose Serrano locked on to the rear end of the NSX, although Gallo not looking too quick through here this time. This might be Serrano's chance to strike.
You can see some drivers, when we're in different cars, being quite aggressive and soaring their way at the wheel. You can't afford to do that in these production-powered machines. It's like driving a spoon through treacle, isn't it? They're just so smooth through those corners, so ginger on the power, so careful on the brakes and on the steering as well. They've just got to try to not upset the balance of the car and keep it as neutral as possible. Here's the slipstream, though, for Jose Serrano. Bit of a warning shot there for Gallo, but Serrano wasn't close enough on this occasion, so he's going to need to be a bit closer next time around to try and pounce and challenge for position.
I really thought he was close enough that time to have a go, but apparently not. Maybe a bad exit or just thinking better of it. Looking back now from the rear wing of the Honda NSX driven by Valerio Gallo, a man with lots of GT accomplishments underneath his belt. Very, very talented driver from Italy, and pretty much these events don't feel the same if he's not here. As we go down to the chicane, come on to lap 9 very shortly. It'll be just 2 laps to go for Valerio Gallo and his first win in this Nations Cup Grand Final.
I've got to say, I love this Honda NSX as well. It is so nice to see it out racing here in Gran Turismo 7 in the World Finals. I saw one in real life when we were in Tokyo earlier this year, and I could almost have jumped for joy. It's just such a spectacle to behold.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, great to see all these cars out on circuit. Of course, 2 seconds, we've got a replay. Here's Sasaki and Koke Lopez. So Lopez in the Ferrari F40 in front. What's happening here? Goes a little bit wide. Sasaki just manages to sneak underneath there in that GT3 RS. Off he goes up into 5th place, and Koke Lopez will be frustrated with that one. Yeah, not brilliant for Lopez, dropping down 3 places from where he started. Not ideal at all. It all sort of began really with the penalty that he picked up in the opening stages, and ever since then it's just gone from bad to worse for him, really. The upshot is he'll be scoring fewer points in this race. If he finishes 6th, he'll get 5 on the board, but also as well it will mean it will compromise his starting position for the second race, because of course that reflects the order of race 1 here. Much better exit this time from Jose Serrano. A little bit of wheel spin from Valerio Gallo in front. We're deep in the toe. This will be the Spaniard's best chance at a move on Valerio Gallo. Gallo goes defensive to the inside. Serrano's going to be forced to go the long way around the outside. There's no camber out there. Really hard to keep the car in the corner. Gallo keeps it down low, keeps it tight. Serrano tries to drift around the outside but can't quite make it work. And now Gallo knows exactly what to expect come the last lap. But Serrano ever a threat in the mirrors. This is going to be so close on this final lap. You can sense it's bubbling up quite nicely. Will it boil over, though, for any of these drivers as we head towards the final tour here at Trial Mountain? We've seen a couple of mistakes creep in for Valerio Gallo over the course of this race. Seems to have ironed them out, though, in the latter parts of this, and is parking his car exactly where Jose Serrano doesn't want it. So down into the final chicane we go. Gallo it is that leads from Serrano. This is for pole position and, of course, for maximum points in the championship as well. Out of the final corner we go. Gallo it is that leads Serrano. I don't think the Spaniard will attack him towards turn 1, not unless he's a brave man, but we know he is a brave man. Surely he's not going to think about it making it stick. No, he lifts off, decides to wait for the right opportunity as this lap unfolds. Yeah, I mean, he knows that he can get close enough there, but I mean, I would have been tempted if I was Serrano just to put a nose in, just to see if I could distract. Valerio Gallo goes for a dive into the tunnel. Gallo sees it late, just about runs the speed around the outside there, still holds the inside line. Serrano still second for now, but Gallo he's fully aware of the Spaniard just buzzing around in his mirrors. One small mistake and Serrano's going to be there. Serrano needs the run of his life through these next couple of corners as Robbie Heck picks up a warning for colliding with another car through this left-hander. It is all about the exit. Serrano's pretty close to Valerio Gallo. He'll have the advantage of the slipstream, and he is closer than he was before. This is going to be the opportunity that Serrano's been looking for to go for the race lead. Gallo knows that, goes defensive, but I'm sure it's not going to be in vain as Serrano pulls alongside the Italian. Side by side we go as we burst into the daylight, into the braking zone. Gallo's got the inside line and the camber on the corner, though. Can Serrano firm it around the outside? Gallo manages to hold on to the lead as we come through. Serrano still there on the outside, but has to settle for second best as we come now down into the final couple of corners. This is absolutely spectacular here at Trial Mountain, and Gallo, all he has to do is park his car in the right place to not allow an opportunity for the Spaniard to find his way through the left-hander we go on this short run down into the final chicane, and unless it's a lunge from Serrano, it won't be, because Gallo parks his car on the inside. Serrano will try and get the switch back through into the next right-hander, but he's not going to be close enough.
half. Out of the final corner we go. Valerio Gallo wins race 1 here at the Nations Cup for the World Finals in Amsterdam from Jose Serrano in second, and Takuma Miyazono will come home in third place as well. Absolutely fantastic. What a clean, fair battle out on track, and it is Valerio Gallo who takes 12 points in the opening race of the evening.
Yeah, I mean, if that race is anything to go by, we are in for an awesome rest of the evening. Those guys were going at it for about...
The Nations Cup Grand Final is on the way, and here is how the grid lines up for one last time in 2024. Red Bull X 2019 is the car, and on pole position the winner from race 2 and the championship leader Jose Serrano. Kilian Drumont joins him on the front row of the grid. Row 2 headed by 2020 champion Takuma Miyazono. Next up is Kai de Bruin, the Dutchman, to a roar from the Dutch crowd. Angel Nostroza P5, he loves these cars, we know he can be quick. Valerio Gallo down in 6th place, he's got a bit of work to do, and he's got Guy Barbara in 7th position right behind him as well. Next up, Adriano Carazza P8 on the grid. And just inside the top 10, Takuma Sasaki, who's had a bit of a difficult second race. Completing the top 10, it is Robbie Heck, the American driver. Next up, his compatriot Callum Roach in P11. 12th and last on the grid, Coque Lopez. He has also got a lot of work to do from that far back. Now, let's look at the tyres for the final time this season at the start of the race. Serrano, he's got clear track in front of him here, Jimmy. He wants to make hay while the sun shines and get off into the distance.
Yeah, that is the right choice, I think, from Jose Serrano. He needs just to make himself a big gap as quick as possible, use that clean air, use that soft tyre, and just be efficient with his time. Interestingly, we mentioned Valerio Gallo before we started. He's gone for that hard compounder tyre, so he's opting to try and basically be the cork in the bottle for the rest of the drivers and opting to go fast a bit later on.
So then coming through to the start-finish line we are. Here are the live points rankings. You can see Jose Serrano it is that leads it then. 5 points over Kilian Drumont. Double points on offer for this grand final. And only one driver that can be crowned as the 2024 Nations Cup World Champion. Jose Serrano will lead the field across the line. Drumont in second, Miyazono in third. For one final time in 2024, we are about to go racing. It's lights out and we are underway for the grand final of the Nations Cup in 2024 here at the Nürburgring. Serrano leads them down towards the first corner, followed by Drumont, Miyazono, De Bruin and Nostroza. A rolling start for the driver. So don't expect any heroics down into that first corner, but you should expect Serrano to try and clear off into the distance with the soft tyres and the clear air in front of him.
Yeah, look at the gap already, 7/10 of a second in the background there as Roach gets by Sasaki. Gallo also moving behind Carazza, but Serrano, the right choice for him for his race is just going to get away early and try and avoid squabbling with his guys behind him. Drumont ahead of Miyazono, and Kai de Bruin looking all ready for a move on Takuma Miyazono. Maybe a bit of contact on the way there through there, but De Bruin up into third place and showing his intention early.
Yeah, didn't take that one lying down, did he, Kai Kai de Bruyne. He wants to make hay whilst the sun shines. He knows how tricky this Nordschleife circuit is. We're on the Grand Prix layout at the moment, but as we head on to the proper Nordschleife, it really does begin to narrow up. Look at that, 1.5 seconds for Jose Serrano in the opening stages of this race. Keen to see also what Robbie Heck is going to be able to do from 7th position. He's on the soft tyre, and he is going to be a lot quicker than those in front of him on the medium compact tyre. But will he be able to, of course, to use that speed? That's the question that we were asking at the start of this race. And as we head on to the green hell, we're about to find out what will happen. Bit of a wiggle on the exit of the corner there for Kai de Bruyne. And down in towards the elevation and the fast part of this circuit we go. Just beautiful to watch this on board here with Takuma Miyazono. And you can see how close he is to Kai de Bruyne, but he's not going to be able to use any of that momentum at the moment. So de Bruyne's hoping to hold it into 3rd place and then try and use some of the strategy a little bit later on to try and play things out.
It's mad seeing the speed of these things through the first part of the Nordschleife here, the Nürburgring proper, and you have no time to think. You get through one corner and another one is upon you, completely flat there after Flugplatz. And now we take the long run down towards Schwedenkreuz, a corner that in real life in most cars is a bit of a lift and a bit of a panic. And this car, watch Takuma Miyazono's throttle input there through his left-hander. Of course, completely flat at 200 miles an hour before braking hard down to Arnberg. Just touched the grass there on the left. Very lucky to get away with that. And now we plummet down towards the forest, between the trees, down towards the compression and the foxhole. Again, completely flat down here for these drivers, keeping that foot pinned even for the left-hander here before we slow right down for Adenauer Force, the very tricky section through here. And Takuma Miyazono showing that he can follow close to Kai de Bruyne, who's touched a couple of curbs through there, unsettling the car. You don't want to do that. The curbs here on a Nordschleife are very tall. You hit them in the wrong way, they're going to send you into the barrier.
Robbie Heck making good progress. He's got himself ahead of Angel Inestrosa, up 5 places from where he started. So he really managed to take advantage of that soft tyre when they were on the Grand Prix layout of track. And now he's up inside the top 5. I wonder if his progress is going to stall somewhat as we come through this section of the circuit. You can see Miyazono and de Bruyne very close to one another. And then a fairly pronounced gap, about 1.5 seconds or so, back to Robbie Heck in P5 at the moment. Inestrosa in 6th position, Karatza inside P7, Gallo on the hard tyre. I suppose the converse as well, Jimmy. You know, we're talking about the soft tyre and not being able to use it necessarily to your advantage on this tricky section of the track. If you're on the hard tyre, it might be a benefit because you might not be able to let anybody past at this point in the track.
Yeah, sort of the idea really. You use the hard tyre to really hinder other people, but here's a replay. We're on board with Karatza going down a T1. We have a lunge on Guy Barbara. We don't look at it. Barbara and Gallo are side by side. Oh, he just gets a little bit sideways there. There's contact there. Barbara hits the wall, then hits Gallo, and Karatza just about manages to get by all of them up into, I think it's going to be a net 6th place once he gets by Valerio. There it is. So a nice start from Karatza there, if not a little bit hectic.
Yeah, it was all hectic in front of him, really, wasn't it, with Barbara and Gallo coming together in that second corner, and that sort of started off that chain of events. Either way, it's worked out quite nicely for the Brazilian, as Kai de Bruyne has still got Takuma Miyazono all over his rear wing at the moment. Drumont's doing enough, 3.6 seconds, though, behind Jose Serrano, but the race will come to him a little bit later on, so there's no point worrying about the gap in front. All he can do at this point is control what is in his hands, just worry about his own race and get on with the job. In towards the carousel, probably the most famous section on this Nordschleife circuit.
I watched this, I think, but how? that absolutely froze it through there. And now we get to the highest point of the circuit, Hohe Axe, this corner, and it's all downhill from here, although literally, not figuratively, as we now just try and make our way through what I think is the most challenging part of the circuit. So much camber, so much elevation here from Wipperman, like it's nothing. Completely flat through there. On the brakes, use the camber on the inside of this right hand, and again, dive to the left, hug that curb before you come up to Brunson 1 and Brunson 2, otherwise known as YouTube corner. In this right-hander, again, just throwing the car. It looks effortless in this at Red Bull X 2019. It's just ridiculous to watch this, isn't it?
So blind they are, those corners as well. And they come up you so quickly, don't they, through there. Killing's just a little bit wide through on the left-handers. A few moments to go. Down through the compression we go into there.
Just a lift of the throttle there after Flanskar. That's what's going on? I could not keep up with this. This is too much. I mean, like, this is why these drivers are the best in the world. And it might look easy watching it, but you think how quickly these corners are coming up on you. You have to be precise every corner, otherwise you end up just spearing off into the barrier. Kleiner carousel now. See, De Bruin not quite... See, this is what I mean. A little bit eager on the throttle there and then slow on exit. And that means he's going to be under attack from Takuma Miyazono going on to this long back straight, Le Dottinger.
Yeah, lovely to see the Dottinger again. Great chance for some slipstreams as well. De Bruin is being pulled along somewhat by Kylian Drumont. Miyazono, did he lift off the throttle there coming down that back straight? I just wonder, because he was quite close to Kai De Bruin and he's not quite able to find his way past. Maybe saving a bit of fuel in the early stages of this race, something to consider as well, because they are pretty thirsty machines, this one. He is now side by side at the end of the Dottinger, then through the left-hander we go, and still he is on the outside here, but you've got to be careful because it's a bit sketchy going through there as it's so close to the grass, into the braking zone. We've seen a few instances there in the Gran Turismo World Series over the last 6 years or so. Thankfully, not this time.
Yeah, and to give you an idea of the pace advantage, it's a 6:24 from Serrano from a standing start or for a rolling start, and a 6:30 from Kylian Drumont. So that's a 5-second difference there between the two drivers. And Drumont now doing a good job in second place, the faster of the medium runners, but not able to keep the pace of Serrano on that soft. Lopez opting to come in early from that hard compound tyre, as we thought he would, but Gallo, from what I can see, has opted to stay out another lap.
I was just about to say, interestingly, Gallo and Barbara have not decided to pit then, so they're going as long as they can on the hard tyre. I mean, we generally say that the hard tyre is lava. You want to stay off for it for as long as possible, for as short time as possible, but there's obviously some method in the madness here for Coque Lopez. He thinks he can either eke out either the soft or the medium tyre an extra lap. Again, doesn't sound like a particularly long amount of time, but when you consider the amount of tyres, the amount of force and energy going through them, a lap around here, it's an awfully long time, and you've got to make that gamble and be confident in it before you come into the pit lane, because if you've made a mistake, well, you're going to pay for it for the next 6 minutes.
I mean, I did watch some practice earlier on, and the soft tyres are pretty cooked after 2 laps, which Serrano's just gone on to lap 2 of that soft tyre. So I think it stands to reason the medium might struggle to do 4 as well. But we settle on watching Kai De Bruin making his way through the chicane, very, very quick through there, and now back on to the Nordschleife, the northern loop. Really awesome to see these cars make their way around this legendary circuit. I mean, we'd race it every time we come here if it was up to me, of course, but that's why it's not up to me.
Look at the fuel, though, there for Serrano versus Drumont, etc. You know, he's done about 6 or 7 litres more fuel, Jose Serrano. Doesn't sound like a particularly great deal, but that's, you know, another couple of seconds in the pit lane that he's going to spend putting fuel into his car relative to those around him if he's not able to save it. The crucial thing is, of course, that Serrano doesn't have the advantage of the slipstream. He's punching the hole in the air. Those behind the likes of Drumont, they, of course, can afford to save a little bit of fuel. We saw that with Miyazono on the first part of the Dottinger Hill, just lifting off of the throttle, coasting, as it were, and just trying to save those crucial sort of millilitres, litres, as it were, to try and give him an advantage when it comes down to the pit stops.
Yeah, I mean, there is going to have to be fuel that goes in the car. We calculated around 96 litres for the entire race, give or take. And these guys are burning through their fuel quickly. The best on fuel so far actually is this man, Takuma Miyazono. He was doing what you said he was doing earlier on, just sort of hanging behind Kai De Bruin, being pulled along by this train in front of him, but also saving that time in the pit stop. There's so much that goes into these races. It's not just good enough to be fast. You've got to be smart as well. And Miyazono has always been that sort of person that has that running in the back of his head, has that capacity to think about things. And that's super important to be successful here in the GT World Series.
The good thing is for Coque Lopez, though he pitted at the end of lap 1, it's a bit of an outlier compared to the rest of the field. He has got, obviously now, a lovely bit of clear track in front of him, 21 seconds to not worry about closing up onto the back of any cars. The risk is, of course, if you go for the soft tyres in the middle stint and you end up stuck behind someone who's on a medium or a hard compound of tyre and you can't find your way through, well, it's all in vain, isn't it, really, because you've got that extra pace and no opportunity to be able to use it. Through these sweeping corners that, again, so blind that you've got to be so precise and lightning on the reactions that this is where the dirty air will really be beginning to kick in. That's the converse, of course, because it will cause you more tyre wear, despite the fact that you can save fuel in a straight line. Yeah,
through Adenau here, there's medium speed corners, so if you lose the grip, you really feel it as we go back up the hill once more. Interestingly, we'll keep one eye on Coque Lopez, because he's gone a completely different direction from everyone else. He's pitted super early, got that hard tyre off, and now he's on a soft tyre with no one in front of him, so he can just push into that gap as hard as possible. This is what Lopez tends to do. He never ever seems to be in a good position going into his final races, but always finds a way to make the strategy work. So we go back on board with Kai De Bruin. There is the trophy these guys are all fighting for. They're the Nations Cup trophy. Which man will have his hands on that when the race checkered flag falls on lap 7 in a few moments' time? Kai De Bruin Still there, still on board, getting a tub hill from Kylian Drumont. Fuel-wise, Kai de Bruyne and Miyazono have used about 3 litres less fuel than Drumont in front. So staying where they are now actually might be, I mean, that's worth a second. It's 3 litres per second.
That's it, yeah. So they're just playing the smart game at the moment, biding their time. It's a marathon, not a sprint. You've got to be careful. You've got to use your head in these races. Unlike what we saw in the first one, where you can sort of afford to lunge your way through on the inside or send it around the outside and, you know, throw caution to the wind, so to speak. You can't do that here in these longer form races. You've really got to be sensible, figure out your strategy and find something that works for you. And also, crucially, not make too many mistakes, because a second here, a second there, half a second even, can be absolutely critical.
Really interested to see what the lap time is going to be for these guys on that medium tyre. 6:24 for this is ridiculous for the full layout. To give you some context, of course, I'm lucky enough to race the equivalent of a Group 4 car in real life, and our best lap time was like an 8:38. That's 2 minutes, 2 and a bit minutes faster. That's just ridiculous around here.
I'll give it a matter of time, Jimmy. It's probably only a matter of time before you end up in some kind of fast prototype, isn't it?
Oh, please, not here, please. I don't want to.
Shut your eyes, turn the wheel, and hope for the best, wouldn't it?
I just don't want to do it.
Through the long right-hander we go, then the fast left-hander as they make their way through, and Kai de Bruyne, as we say, just biding his time, keeping it patient. Roach's got a penalty as well down there in 8th position. Didn't quite see exactly what that was all about. He's made up 3 places, though, from where he started, but he's got Sasaki not too far adrift down there in 9th position. Gallo also, as we know, on the hard tyre as it stands for now. We should see a flurry of activity in the pit lane at the end of lap 2. For my money, you're going to see at least the hard shob runners coming in. I reckon we're probably going to see the soft shob runners of Serrano and Heck probably pitting, because I don't think they'll have much life left in them.
Interestingly, the gap to the front hasn't extended in the same way. So I think we're seeing that second lap on that soft tyre is nowhere near as strong as the first. I mean, to be expected. Serrano's tyres now are starting, you can see there, the rear tyres are starting to get to a point where they're really, really struggling. That'd be bad traction, bad braking. The bad tyre wear affects everything about a car. As we come down again, watching Kai de Bruyne again. Miyazono, I've got the impression, just lifting that throttle, just letting himself coast up to the back of the cars in front, giving himself the maximum possible pit advantage. Now, will these guys come into the pit lane this lap? Let's see. Kai de Bruyne, Drumont, they all stay out on that medium compound tyre, but our leader, Jose Serrano, is into the pit lane, as is Robbie Heck behind on the soft tyres.
So medium shob runners again, trying to go as long as possible, trying to do, what, 4 laps on those medium tyres, quite possibly. We're on lap 3 now, so Serrano comes into the box. He, of course, has used more fuel because he's been punching the air in front of him, and that is the difficult thing about leading the race in circumstances such as this. Though, of course, you can get clear air and run your own time, you are going to be expending a bit more fuel, and it's a lot easier to gain time on track than it is to lose time in the pit lane. You know, a second here, a second there doesn't sound like a lot, but in the pit lane it takes you ages to get that back on track, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. I mean, like, as you say, a second in the pit lane is much easier to lose than a second on circuit, or to gain even. So there's Serrano, so he's back now in P10. Lopez, interestingly, ahead of him now on that soft compounder tyre. So it goes to show that Lopez's first stint was actually pretty good. Yeah,
really good from Coque Lopez, former Nations Cup champion, of course. Won it back in 2022, part of the winning lineup as well as Team Spain when it was a team competition in 23.
I'm trying to understand. Lopez must have been a blinder to do that, surely. Well, am I being silly here, Tom?
No, he's worked it quite nicely here so far. You know, he's still 17 seconds off the back relative, because, of course, he's got Robbie Heck behind. He's closed up the gap quite nicely, about 5 seconds or so, compared to where he was as when he came out in that pit stop. So it's working out quite nicely for Coque Lopez, but, again, those around him have still got to make their pit stop. You know, there's, another 10 seconds roughly there and thereabouts in Astroza, Sasaki to make up the road. So we'll see how it works out. And, of course, the converse for Lopez, though he's got that nice bit of clear air, he doesn't have the slipstream. He can't save fuel like those others who are in close competition around him. So that could come to hinder him when he gets to the pit time again.
Yes, definitely. And from there, right now, the men in the best possible position for that are De Bruyne and Miyazono. Now, Kylian Drumont is now leading this race. From the front back, the Frenchman always been very, very fast in these competitions, and we know he has the ability to win here in the Gran Turismo World Series. Fastest lap, though, so far belongs to Takuma Miyazono, the man in 3rd place, a 6:25.7, only marginally faster than the cars around him, but enough to have the fastest lap for now. But I guarantee you, as the race goes on, that is going to fall dramatically.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Kai de Bruin just keeping watching brief on proceedings. There is Kilian Drumont. In terms of the fuel, he's exuded another 4 litres compared to the Dutchman at the moment. So just see how tight those margins are there as well as they make their way through these corners. It almost looks like they're flirting with the grass, the curb, every single opportunity going through those fast corners.
What's the magic of the Nordschleife is it isn't as a traditional racetrack. It's a relic from a time that's gone, but still somehow used and raced on today. Where look how close these barriers are. You make a mistake, you're on the grass. I mean, you're in the grass, no grip. You're in that barrier almost straight away. And it really is a track that demands your attention. It demands skill and precision. And then on top of that, we launch these guys into the fastest cars in the game and go, yeah, off you go. Enjoy that, have fun. I say that outside of the Tomahawk. I would love to see a race in those.
That would be class.
Yeah.
One day. That's the thing I love about the Nations Cup as well, is the variety. You know, we started off in 1,000 horsepower road cars, no downforce, you know, not particularly brilliant when it comes to braking power compared to a racing car. And then speaking of that, we end up in a racing car for the second one, where we're in, you know, a 90s Formula car. And then for the last one, we're in a modern day hyper-powered Red Bull X29T, which has got more downforce than you can shake a stick at.
This is Lopez.
Yeah, making his way past Robbie Heck. Heck on the hard compound of tyre here, coming through, and that was nicely done. Heck not holding him up too much, but again, nice bit of clear air there for Coque Lopez to just try and take profit of it. Where's his next gap up the road? 18 seconds. He's again in a nice, comfortable position at the moment, but again, I just wonder what it's going to look like for him in terms of fuel relative to those up the front. I'm just looking at the fuel savings for some of them, 32, 33 litres for De Bruin and Miyazono. Lopez, about the same, 33. He's just ticked over to as well. So it's working out okay there for Coque Lopez. He's on the soft tyre, but let's not forget, he is going to have to owe the medium tyre at the end of this one, whereas others around him may owe the soft. So it might put him out of sequence. Yeah,
it does get a bit complicated now. We've got a lot of different strategies going, lots of numbers being thrown at us and at you guys at home. But what we do know is once all the pit stops are said and done, we'll know exactly who's where and what fights are going to be on for the end of the race. Drumont has fallen back a little bit to Kai de Bruin. He did try to, I think, make a little bit of a gap to these guys, but he pushed hard and ended up using a little bit of fuel. And now he's realising that, oh no, maybe actually I've just gone a bit hard at this point. But De Bruin and Miyazono are doing everything they can do right now, just staying in touch, just staying within slipstream range, just outside of that massive dirty air area, which is really going to push the tyres and make things a bit more difficult for them. And Miyazono, if anything, is looking like he wants to maybe get by Kai de Bruin.
Worst case scenario here for Drumont is if he comes into the pit lane at the same time as De Bruin and Miyazono do, he'll be relinquishing that race lead away, won't they? Because they'll be able to get ahead if they're taking on less fuel, or indeed if they don't take any fuel on board and they decide to do it later on. What are we down to? 24 litres? I'm sure they're going to have to, really. It depends on which way they go in terms of the tyres for their middle stint in this race. Speaking of the tyres, the rear's not looking too bad. They're certainly a bit more second-hand. Lopez and his rear tyres are in far worse condition comparatively. Are they going to last another lap though, or are we going to see the medium runners coming into the box at the end of this one? We'll find out in a couple of minutes or so's time once we've made our way down through the Dottinger Hurt. Lots of battles and strategies to play out. Either way, the top three at the moment, Drumont, De Bruin and Miyazono, bit of an exhibition at the sharp end of this race. They have controlled this one very comfortably indeed so far.
Now, will Miyazono save more fuel, or will he just get the slingshot, try and get onto the back of Drumont, then take the race lead from there? Who knows? I mean, here we go. Looking back from Kilian Drumont, he's pulled a bit of a gap there. Miyazono, now watch that little bar, the indicator, on the right-hand side of the steering wheel. Will we see any lifting from Takuma Miyazono? Maybe he's just turned the fuel down. You can do that in these cars. You can turn the fuel mix down a little bit. It slows down the car, but saves a little bit of fuel. And on the straight, when you've got the slipstream anyway, the car has to do less work. It's the right time to do it, as they all brake hard down into the end of the lap. Off the Nordschleife, we go back on to the GP circuit, and as predicted, all three cars come into the pit lane, but that will mean that De Bruin or Miyazono will likely go up into the lead now. Because look at the fuel difference. Miyazono has saved 7 litres of fuel over Drumont. That's massive. That's over 2 seconds.
It's huge, absolutely huge. As we say, very, very difficult to gain that back when you get onto the circuit, unless, of course, you're following a car quickly on the Dottinger Hurt. So De Bruin, Drumont, Miyazono, Inestrosa and Roach all in the box off of the medium compound of tyres. Sasaki and Karatza have decided to carry on, presumably in their middle stint, unless they've just not come around to the pit lane yet, because of course they were a fair old way back. So fuel going on board, soft tyres for Drumont and De Bruin. Miyazono, the outlier there, he's going onto the hard compound of tyre for this middle stint. So he's going to try and hopefully gain track position and then keep the rest of the drivers behind him on the Nordschleife circuit. And it's worked out quite nicely for Miyazaki because he has now got track position, but of course he's got a slower compound of tyre. I
have to apologise for missing something a little bit earlier on. I wondered why Serrano had dropped behind Coque Lopez. It's because the opposite take is still there. He's done his dual stop, Serrano, now. He's put in all the fuel he needs to get to the end of the race and now has track position over Miyazaki, Drummond and De Bruin, but he does have to go onto that hard tyre at the end of the race. Miyazaki opting to do that now, so really there's a bit of a gap again for Serrano to drive into. So that might have been an amazing strategic call from Jose Serrano.
Well, it could be. We'll wait and see what happens, though, with Miyazono, because he's got a fast-charging De Bruin and Drummond behind. They're both on the soft compound tyres. So what Miyazono's got to really hope for here is that he can keep those two behind on this GP circuit. Then when we get back onto the Nordschleife, the Green Hell, then he can hopefully keep them at bay for at least the rest of this lap, because presumably if he's on the hard tyre now, he's going to try and run it for one lap, then go on to the soft tyre for the very end of this race. But 3 laps on the softs, that's a tall order though, isn't it, for Takuma Miyazono. He's run the mediums, he's now on the hards. Let's see how this is going to play out. Either way, he's going to have a fast-charging Frenchman behind him here, because we're on board with Kylian Drummond. Down through in towards Hatzenbach we go. And again, you can just see how narrow and tight it is. You've got to thread the eye of a needle through these corners. But look how early Drummond can get on the power and how late he can get on the brakes. The Achilles heel for Miyazono here is going to, when we come up towards the flag puts, because look at that, around the outside to Kylian Drummond. And I don't think Miyazono is going to have anything left in his locker. Indeed, he doesn't. And Drummond accelerates his way through, effectively, into a net race lead.
And Kai De Bruin follows him through as well. Follows Drummond through. They do not want to lose time behind Takuma Miyazono. So now Drummond and De Bruin need to really push and get away from Miyazono, because he is on that hard compound tyre, but while using the draft he can sort of stay with them, but that will of course fall away as they go through the corners. Through Schradenkreuz now braking hard down to Arenberg, get the car into the camber on the inside, hook it in and then back full gas as we go down the hill back towards the compression and the Foxhorn. You can see the difference just there already, one corner and the gap's up to 0.5 of a second.
Look at Serrano though, he's only what, 5 seconds up the road compared to Drummond, and Drummond on a quicker compound of tyre, taking fuel on board as well. So Serrano here on this middle stint, he's going to be struggling. It's going to be a bit of damage limitation, and of course he owes that hard tyre at the end of this race. So again, it could be a smart strategy, but it might not work out for the Spaniard. Let's have a look and see what happened then here. So Miyazono just ran it a bit deep, couldn't get the car rotated. Drummond said thanks very much, went straight through, and then De Bruin said thanks very much as the slipstream came into effect with Kylian Drummond and managed to sweep off.
I've never seen a move like that before at that corner, but I've also never seen...
Oh, Serrano, penalty.
Oh, that's huge. Colliding with another car. When was that? Was that Carrazza?
We'll have to wait and see. I did wonder if the gap had shrunk down, and it looks like it clearly has, hasn't it? So Serrano now with Drummond. Let's have a look at what happened then here. So Serrano, it's with Robbie Heck, isn't it? It's further back and up the inside, and it was the merest of touches going through there, wasn't it?
It was very tight. I mean, our stewards do have access to different angles than we do, and they will have looked at that a few times before handing out that penalty. But that's going to be huge. Huge for Yoseta there. He's really going to have to push to make that time back. The second might not seem like much on a circuit this big, but these guys, that's how tight the competition is. 1 second can make all the difference. Now, interestingly, do you know who the fastest man on track right now is? Well, not this guy.
Yeah,
but it's Valerio Gallo on that medium compound tyre, currently in P7, and he is someone who still has the soft tyre yet to run, and he is gaining on Miyazono in front.
Well, you've got Italy's fastest man out on track, and you've got Spain's maddest man, I'm sure, in third place following that penalty as well. So a difficult middle stint then here for Jose Serrano. As you say, it was just the lightest of grazes. Meanwhile, Adriano Carrazza up into second. He's all over the back of Takuma Sasaki. Is he going to be able to find his way through on the Japanese driver as we come through this series of corners? Well, if you give Carrazza an inch, he'll take a mile, and I wonder whether he's going to think about it before too long. He's not close enough to mount a challenge at the moment. Both of these drivers on the medium compound of tyre, both will be pitting at the end of this lap because they're going to be critical on fuel. 8 litres left for Sasaki, 8 litres left for Adriano Carrazza. And they'll be coming out of this one on to their next compound of tyre, because they've done a first stint rather on the medium compound of tyre. So presumably they're going to go to the hard tyre for 1 lap only and then try and run the softs to the end of the race. So what they've tried to do is get the overcut effectively on them. But what's the gap now down to? 15.8 seconds to Jose Serrano. It's a bit of a bold strategy, that one, isn't it?
Yeah, sorry, I was just chuckling to myself watching the gyro cam from it. It looks so fast through there, man. I mean, I've done a few silly laps around the Nürburgring in silly cars, and I just think to myself that, like, I cannot do that. Oh, Sasaki there running it very wide on the exit of onto the straight, onto the dot under her there, and now Karatsa will have that draft down the straight. Usually it's easy to pass it, but these guys are both on very little fuel indeed, so they're going to have to take fuel here. How much they take, of course, might not agree with each other. We might see Sasaki take a lot, we might see Karatsa take a lot, but we'll see as they come into pit lane underneath the Bilstein Bridge as we go now down towards the heavy braking zone. Zaki looking up at the screen there, because they can get a bit of info from the screen. They can see the same big screen you guys can out in the audience and at home. So sometimes you'll catch the players glancing at that to get a little bit of an idea of what's going on around them. You
do hear that of that in F1 as well. Drivers, when they've got a commanding advantage, will just have a look up at the big screen to see what's happening. Sasaki and Karatsa then, as predicted, into the pit lane. They cut that very, very fine. 1 litre of fuel left for Sasaki in his Red Bull X 2019. So Serrano is going to take over at the front, but the deficit between himself and Drumont now down to 2.1 seconds, and Drumont is going to be coming very close to the back of him very, very soon. And we'll see how long it takes the Frenchman to mount a challenge for the race lead. So, start of lap 5, we are on. 3 to go here in the grand final in the Nations Cup. Serrano on the slower compound of medium tyre, but also, crucially, owes even the slower compound of tyre. So that the hards at the end of this race.
New fastest lap of the race set by Valerio Gallo, a 6:23.4. The Italian on a charge right now on that medium compound of tyre. He's just found, I think, a good rhythm around here, and importantly, actually starting to put up to the back of Takuma Miyazono. So if the tyre graphic is to be believed, Gallo might be able to catch Miyazono by the end of this lap.
And the best news for Gallo is that he owes the soft tyre at the end of this race, so he'll be quicker than those around him as well, because every other driver in front of him will not be on the soft tyre at the end of this race. We'll have Serrano on the hard tyre, Drumont will be on the hard tyre as well as De Bruyne. Miyazono will be on the soft tyre as well, so what he needs to do really is try and get onto the back of Miyazono and get past him while he's on a quicker compound.
Another penalty for Serrano. That's got to be track limits. We've just gone through one of the fastest chicanes on the circuit. Really easy to pick up a penalty there, and Serrano throwing away any advantage he has, just not quite comfy maybe on that medium stint on that medium compound of tyre, but another penalty for Serrano, and that is an automatic one. Stewart's got nothing to do with that one as we ride on board with Kylian Drumont. The sun starting to get a little bit lower in the sky now as we just fly through this first sector of the Nordschleife, and that'll be a real encouragement to Drumont, because he can now see the car he is chasing. It won't be long before he's got a draft and he'll be right on the back of our current leader, Jose. 1 second penalty too, and here are our live point standings, but that will change very soon.
Yeah, certainly will. So Serrano could be costing himself a chance at being crowned the 2024 Nations Cup champion here, because as you can see, very fine margins, double points on offer for this grand final as well. So if Drumont is able to leapfrog the Spaniard, it will be Drumont who is crowned as the champion, but De Bruyne, Miyazono, all relatively close behind as well. Let's have a look at what happened here to Serrano then. So as Jimmy said, coming in towards the chicane, he just clambered the curb a bit too much going into the first part of it, and he knew straight away, didn't he? Bit his lip there, shook his head, and that was it, unfortunately. Big shame there for Jose Serrano, and you can see now the Jaws music is being cued in the record player, because Drumont and De Bruyne are very close behind indeed.
Now, interestingly, Kai De Bruyne has done an amazing job saving fuel, whereas Kylian Drumont has 19 litres left in the tank. Kai De Bruyne has 26. That is nearly 3 seconds in the stop, and that's going to be huge for the Dutch driver when we come round to our last round of pit stops. But we've still got to get there first. This circuit bites, especially when you don't expect it. One lapse of concentration and you find yourself in the barrier.
So if you're Kylian Drumont here, do you try and find your way through on Serrano as soon as possible, or do you just play the long game, wait for him to serve that penalty?
You've got to send it. You've got to get through as quick as possible here, because he's going to be slower through that last sector. I'd say this is a good chance up the hill towards the carousel here. We go through Bergwerk, and then we have a nice long section. Drummond should gain a little bit into Bergwerk through the right-hander. He does, and now it's full front. He'll use the draft of the car in front. Maybe not quite close enough, though, but he needs to get by. He can't afford to wait because there are cars who maybe aren't directly behind him right now, but it also threats when it comes to the last round of pit stops.
The other thing to consider here is that Drummond and De Bruyne are on that soft tyre. We saw there was a big drop-off in performance on that second lap, and they are now on lap 2. So there is a possibility that the tyres could be coming a little bit more towards the end of their life compared to the medium tyres, relative to Jose Serrano in front, of course.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I just heard Drummond there turn the fuel down as he couldn't get any closer to Serrano. Now right on the back of the Spanish driver. As we go into the carousel for the 5th time, he'll launch the car to the bottom here and just ride it through. Incredibly bumpy through here. Very easy to just spin a tyre if you get on the throttle too early on the exit. And now we go back up again to the highest point of the circuit. But actually, Serrano, impressive enough through there, still keeping that gap of 7/10.
Certainly is. Oh, threading the eye of a needle through there. That's beautiful from Kylian Drummond. Fantastic piece of driving from the Frenchman. And likewise, Serrano and De Bruyne. I have to say, De Bruyne doing such a good job to keep within the wheel tracks consistently. Half a second he sits now behind Drummond, and he's been there for a fair amount of time. And De Bruyne actually the fastest man of the entire race in the first and second sectors over the course of this one. Up in towards YouTube corner we go. And Serrano there, he's going to be a bit of a sitting duck as we head in towards the Döttinger, the top 3. Well, you could throw a blanket over them, couldn't you, at this point? But look at that, 8 litres more fuel for Kai De Bruyne. That is going to pay dividends when we come through into the pit lane. Serrano surely is going to be into the box at the end of this one. He's got no choice. He's got no fuel left in that X2019. Drummond and De Bruyne as well, they've got to come in, because I would have thought that those soft tyres are not going to be able to go 3 laps for a 1-lap dash on the hard tyre at the end of this one.
And let me tell you, that penalty zone is going to come up soon for Jose Serrano, and it hurts. It's on the main straight, this one here, so that'll cost him a ton of time. You can see as we go now through the last real corner before we get onto the back straight. And then you can just let the engine run free as you come now back towards the GP circuit. There's the penalty line in front. You can see it. Serrano crosses it now, slows down massively. Oh, man, look at that.
Closing speed is incredible, isn't it?
But Serrano, luckily, will have the draft. He should pick the car back up again nicely. He has fallen back a little bit, but that's not going to hurt him as much as we originally thought.
But the problem is he's lost track position. They're all going to have to take a bit of fuel on board for this final stop. And again, the big outlier here is going to be Kai De Bruyne. He's got 12 litres left. Drummond in front has got 4 litres. Serrano just 2 litres. So again, very, very fine margins. Here are the live point standings. Now Drummond has got ahead of Serrano. He now would be crowned as the Nations Cup champion, but there's still 2 laps left and remaining. 1 litre of fuel left for Serrano. Cut that very, very fine indeed. De Bruyne, meanwhile, he will take over in the lead of the race with track position here, presumably, as well. The upshot is, though, that Gallo is going to be the fast charger at the end of this race. He sits in 5th position currently, but he's got the soft tyre to run. He's got a fair amount of fuel to take on board, though, as well. What about Angel Stroza behind? He's a fair way out of contention compared to Gallo, so no need really to worry about him. It's the top 5 we've got to keep an eye on here, and it's Gallo to see what progress he is now going to be able to make in the final stint of this race as he goes on to the soft tyre. Just to remind you, coming into this one, he is still very much in contention for the title. He had 27 points. He was tied on 2nd place with Kylian Drummond, and this final stint is going to define absolutely everything in the Nations Cup.
Wow, it comes down to this. Kai De Bruyne out front. 3.4 seconds is the gap owing to his fuel saving throughout the race. Great strategy there from the Dutch driver. That's the gap on circuit. That is the gap to the end now. Behind him, Jose Serrano still within touching distance. Takuma Miyazono out of the pits now. And look, on that soft compounder tyre, if there's something you don't want to see in the mirrors, it is Takuma Miyazono on the soft tyre. This guy is a rocket and now has the fastest car possible until the end of the race. But as does behind him Valerio Gallo, incredibly fast Italian driver. Alternative strategy from the rest, but now also within touching distance. It's going to be an absolute dogfight to the end here, and I cannot wait as Serrano already latches onto the back of Kylian Drummond.
Big outlier in this one, of course, is Takuma Sasaki. He is out of sequence compared to everybody else. So though he's in the race lead, it's not the race lead, effectively. It's the net race lead is being decided between De Bruyne and Drummond and Serrano at the moment. But keep an eye out for Miyazono and for Gallo as well, because they're both actually now on the soft compound of tyre at the end of this one. If the checkered flag fell now, of course, I know it's a bit difficult with Sasaki being in the race lead. Gallo would finish a joint 4th place in the championship standings, which is not where he wants to be. Miyazono would be 3rd in the championship standings as well. So we'll wait and see how this one is going to play out and see what the gap is going to look like between Sasaki and De Bruyne as well. Up to 10.5 seconds between them. Sasaki, as we know, on that soft compound of tyre, so he's trying to get the overcut, effectively go a lap longer now on that soft tyre compared to everybody else. In fact, he was a lap longer on his first stint, I beg your pardon, so he was a lap longer on the medium tyre at the start of this one, which is why he is now out of sequence relative to those around him. So yeah, be interested to see what happens once this final pit stop has taken place, and once we get onto the final lap, then we will know proper what the order is going to look like for the victory.
Guys, you are watching right now a master at work. This is Takuma Miyazono on the soft compound of tyre, and now all he has to do is qualifying laps. Push hard now to the end of the race. Serrano ahead of us on the relative 6.9 seconds. Incredibly nice is the gap between him and Serrano. If anyone can close that down, it is this man, flying down now towards the compression. In every corner, every braking zone, he's going to be taking time out of the Spanish driver owing to that soft tyre. But as you said, Tom, the tyre does fall away on the second lap. So do you push hard now? Do you use it up, get that lap time? Or do you try and maybe conserve a little bit and have a quicker average over the 2 laps? That's up for Miyazono to work out.
Everything that you seem to throw at Takuma Miyazono, he adapts, doesn't he? He's like a comedian. He just seems to change his colours depending on the circumstances that are thrown at him. And I saw him earlier in the license test qualifying session that we had, and they were driving old Ferraris and then changing over to a Subaru with studded tyres on in the snow, and he was just able to throw the car into the corners and extract the maximum performance, and that is exactly what he's doing here in this final stint of the race. The gap coming down 2.3 seconds. He's faster in this sector alone.
Look at this precision through here. It is insane. As you say, Tom, 2.5 seconds gained on this lap. The gap now down to 4.9 seconds as we go through Adenau, just siving our way through here. The amount of skill and precision it takes to drive these cars around this circuit at this speed is almost beyond comprehension, but that's why these guys are the best drivers in the world at Gran Turismo. Through Bergwerk now, heavy on that throttle, and now a chance to breathe. And I think I just caught a glimpse of Serrano in front there, and it's a completely different ball game when you see that car you're chasing. You just, something changes in your brain. You turn into the hunter, and you just find that extra bit of speed, and Miyazono is very close to seeing the Spaniard in front now.
So the carrot being dangled then for Takuma Miyazono. Let's not forget he won the Nations Cup Championship back in 2020 when he went on to do the Triple Crown. He won the Toyota GR-GT Cup that year and also was part of Subaru's Manufacturer Cup winning lineup as well.
So Miyazono there looks really damn fast, right? Do you know who was faster behind him? Valerio Gallo.
Yeah.
He's gained now to 1.7 seconds. That gap was 2.5 seconds at the start of a lap. The Italian driver putting in an even better performance right now than Takuma Miyazono. This is going to be a grandstand finish at this race with only a lap and a half to go. Who's it going to be? These guys do have the tyre advantage, but they've got to get past Kai De Bruyne, Kylian Drummond and Jose Serrano if they want a chance at taking this Nations Cup final championship.
So 1.5 laps then to go here at the Nordschleife. Through into the right-hander here for Valerio Gallo. I suppose the difficult thing for him is he's going to come into dirty air before too long as well. That's the problem when you're following cars through these fast sweeping corners. 1.7 seconds between Miyazono and Gallo it stands at the moment, but once he of course gets closer to the Japanese driver, it will start to hinder him a little bit more.
I think so. And fuel-wise, they're all good to the end, so it's a straight push now. There is Serrano. This will help Serrano. Having a look. There's Miyazono. He's right there. Look how close they are now. Miyazono can smell blood in the water. He can see Serrano in front. The sparks being kicked up from the Red Bull X 2019 in front, and he might even get into the point where he'll get a toe down the back straight. Watch him through his right hand. You completely flat. The commitment unreal here from Miyazono. Darting the car to the right to get a better entry, almost onto the gravel there. Now through the Kleiner Carousel, back up the hill, using that toe. 1.2 seconds now is the gap. He'll have a toe going onto the straight. This is huge right now with just over 1 lap to go. Miyazono and Gallo on a charge.
So current point standings, Jose Serrano would be crowned as the champion. by finishing in 4th place. But of course, Sasaki will be coming into the pits in a few moments' time from the race lead. He'll be changing over onto the hard compound of tyre at the end of this one, and that will mean it will be a final lap showdown in the fight for victory here in the Nations Cup. Sasaki in the box then as he comes in. Where will he emerge? Actually, after the pit stops as well. That's going to be an important point.
I don't know.
No, I don't know, but I wonder if he's going to be a bit of an upset for some of the drivers, quite possibly, here as well.
I feel like he'll be behind Gallo. I feel that's where it's going to come out, but we'll see. I mean, Sasaki has had a good in-lap on that soft tyre, but as we go, so Kai de Bruin then inherits the lead from Kylian Drumont, Jose Serrano 3rd, Miyazono 4th, and Gallo up into 5th. It's now a straight fight between these 5 drivers for the win here in the grand final. If the race finishes now, Serrano would win, but I have a feeling he's going to be passed very soon by this man, Takuma Miyazono, extremely close to the back, and he has the tyre advantage on the soft compound tyre. Serrano has driven well, but that hard compound, look at the difference here. He's just a sitting duck at this point.
Yeah, Miyazono's had a particularly good run in this weekend so far, and he's now all over the back of Jose Serrano. He's lunging his way to the inside of the Spaniard, down into the hairpin, and Miyazono goes up and through into 3rd place. He made that look so easy, and that then elevates him up into 3rd now in the championship standings. Next target, Kylian Drumont, and he's only 0.6 of a second away.
Yeah, I mean, this is it now. If you're in that driver's seat, you're just feeling egged on. You think, right, I've got one, let's get another one. And then the thing is, 3.5 seconds in front of this is Kai de Bruin. So will Takuma Miyazono have the pace to catch the Dutch driver? He's there because of his great fuel saving. Will Miyazono go for a move here into the chicane? He's looking at it. Oh, he does! In the chicane, does on the inside, slows them all up though, and Miyazono through, and now it's 4.5 seconds, and there's Gallo. Gallo there in the background too. Now he's got to get by as soon as possible. He cannot waste time with Serrano or Drumont if he wants to challenge this win. But look already, he's stuck there. That could be the deciding move from Takuma Miyazono.
Yeah, difficult times then for Valerio Gallo. You can see there if there's a tie at the point, it'll be the driver with the higher result in this grand final race who will be crowned as the champion. Now Miyazono is up and into 2nd. That's enough currently for him to be crowned as the world champion, but he'll be tied on points with Jose Serrano, so of course he needs to finish ahead of the Spaniard. Serrano currently in 4th place, and now here's Gallo trying to make his attempt at a pass over through flag puts on Serrano, but nothing doing for him at the moment. He's so much faster than the Spaniard because the Spaniard's on the hard compound of tyre, but he doesn't have the opportunity to use that extra pace that he's got underneath him. He's going to be forced to the outside line here. Gallo's going to be later on the brakes. Is he going to sweep his way through on the inside, then goes to the outside line? Very close quarters here for Valerio Gallo around the outside, and Serrano's not giving this one up easy at all. Side by side they still continue to run, and eventually he has to settle for second best. It's going to be game over for Gallo at this rate.
Serrano fighting for his life right now. It's so hard to keep a guy on the soft tyres behind you, but he's doing it well. And all this while, all the while's going on, Miyazono is pulling away. Kai de Bruin is still 4 seconds to the good of Takuma Miyazono. If he can just keep his pace up, he might be able to beat the Japanese driver to the line. But Gallo right now, this is the downside on a different strategy. Goes for the lunge, can't quite make a move. You can feel the impatience from the Italian driver, and I have the feeling that this isn't going to end well. Contact there with Serrano as dusk begins to settle here at the Nürburgring. Lights on as we now fly through the forest, illuminated by the headlights of his Red Bull X2019s. Gallo running out of time to make a move.
And this is the problem when you start lower back in the pack. It gives yourself so much more work to do. Gallo has really been compromised by his poor race 2, and now he is paying the price for it here in race 3. He picks up a warning for his troubles as well. One more of those, it'll be a penalty being issued by the stewards. And he's still stuck behind Jose Serrano. He can feel the hopes and dreams of a world title, a second Nations Cup championship slipping through his fingers at the moment. Meanwhile, Miyazono will be rubbing his fingers with glee in about half a lap's time if it finishes as it is.
I don't know if he can get there. Kai de Bruin's pace in this hard tyre is exceptional. He is being caught by Takuma Miyazono, but not quick enough. Not quick enough, I think, to have to fend off. Here comes Gallo once more, looking for another place up towards the mud curve. He's side by side with Serrano. He can't make it happen. Serrano, a defensive masterclass from the Spanish driver. This guy knows exactly what he's doing. The sparks being kicked up in the dust by the Red Bull X2019. Now looking into the carousel, into the corner before the carousel. still can't find a way by. This is a disaster for Valerio Gallo.
Look at Gallo, he's all over him like a cheap suit here, trying to find his way through, going in towards the carousel, but there's just nothing he can do. You can't go 2 by 2 through that corner, not unless you fancy a taste of the barrier. And Drumont, meanwhile, a bit of a cork in the bottle here at the moment as well, just keeping his powder dry up the road in 3rd place. And this is so frustrating for Valerio Gallo. I'm sure it's going to be game over because we've got less than half a lap to go. And Miyazono, meanwhile, is closing up onto the back of De Bruyne. He's brought the gap now down to 2.4 seconds. I don't know if the victory in the race overall is going to be in question, but he will finish crucially ahead of Jose Serrano on the road, which will be enough, even though it's a tie, for him to be crowned as the Nations Cup World Champion of 2024. This is absolutely superb.
So Serrano is doing his best to try and stay on the back of Kylian Drumont, because if Serrano can get by Kylian Drumont, he will be the champion for 2024. But of course, he's got Valerio Gallo behind him. It's looking one eye forward, one eye back, and Gallo is doing everything he can to find a way by. But it's so hard to overtake around here, around an Nürburgring. But we're now coming on to the best place to do that, on to the Dottinger. It's going to be a slipstream battle between these 3 drivers, and basically, if Serrano can get by Drumont, he will be our champion for the year. Miyazono now has caught Kai De Bruyne. He's right on the back of Kai De Bruyne. If he can overtake De Bruyne, he will be unquestionably the 2024 champion. This is so important for the championship.
One more straight to go then to define the 2024 title in the Nations Cup. Miyazono pulls out of the slipstream and sides his way past Takuma Miyazono. But what's happening in the background? What about Drumont and Serrano in the battle for 3rd place there as well? It's very close between them, but Miyazono, he's going to have enough in his pocket. This will give him a 4-point advantage as we come to the checkered flag if he's able to stay ahead of Kai De Bruyne. The Dutchman would love to take victory, though.
De Bruyne's out of fuel, Tom. He's out of fuel.
Oh, disaster for Kai De Bruyne. What does that mean, though, for Drumont and Serrano close behind? De Bruyne so close to taking victory. It's going to be a big upset here, indeed. He's parking his car. Serrano involved in strife. Drumont as well. Takuma Miyazono is the 2024 Nations Cup champion of the world here in Amsterdam. Absolutely superb. Drumont in 2nd. Serrano will come over the line in 3rd. The problems there for De Bruyne cost Serrano really dear in those final couple of corners. It means that Drumont will take 2nd in the standings, and Serrano will finish down in 3rd overall now as well.